Alright, this demo I'm going to get you started on using the cascading style sheet CSS. Let's continue from our little project. In our last demo, we created two files, index.html and schedule.html. This is about a faculty's personal website. So what it looks like, something like this, right? So we have a menu and we have some content. We have the first home page, we have the second schedule page. Let me increase the size a little bit. So we have two pages. Now we don't have any styles yet, so let's create some styles, some formatting for those two files using CSS. Alright, so let me go back to my files and edit them with Notepad++. That is our Notepad++. So first I'm going to use the inline style directly, so I want to format the second paragraph a little bit so I can type actually style. And you can see that I have something called automatic completion. The function is turned on, so you can actually go to settings, preference, and there is one tab called backup auto completion. So make sure you check the first one, enable auto completion. So it actually reminds you some of the keywords that we use. And also don't forget the language should be either HTML or later or CSS if we are creating a separate and independent CSS file. So for now I'm going to leave it as HTML. So continue style equals to, so this is the syntax. We want to make, for example, the color. Color is the attribute, and colon you'll supply the value. So this time I'm going to use the red color. So after this change, let me save this and back into the browser here. Let's check home, and you can see it's turned into red. This is what we call the inline style. If you have more attributes, you can separate them by a semicolon. So for example, I'm going to change the font size. I'm going to change the really big one just for demonstration purpose. So this time I'm going to give it 40 pixels. Okay, px stands for pixels. Normal ones defined in browsers is 16 pixels. So that's the regular size, but now it's 14 pixels. So let me save and refresh. Where is the refresh button? Just press F5. Oh, that's really big. Okay, so that's where you can directly embed the style, CSS syntax style, with every HTML tag. But that's not very convenient if you want to apply the style to, say, all the p tags, right? So for example, I want this part also to be the same style as the second paragraph. What I have to do is that copy this part to the first p tag. So that works, but that creates duplicates. Okay, so in order to avoid such duplicate redundancy, we actually create a in-page style, a particular block, style block inside the head tag. So we call it style. Type is text CSS, and don't forget to close it. So instead of using the inline tag, we actually put a generic style applies to all the p tag. This is called a selector. So I'm going to select the p tag and apply the values I want. So here I want to say color. I want to make it let's say green. Right, same syntax. We want to make the font size a regular 120 pixels. So when I apply this in-page style, it will apply to all the corresponding tag in this page. Let me save and do a refresh. You can actually see that this is green, right? This is green. It changed to a regular 20 pixel size. But also the second paragraph is not changed. You can see that the inline style actually have a higher precedence, cascading, right? This is what we call it, cascading. So the inline style have a higher priority than the in-page style. So which means it overrides the general in-page style. So in order to avoid that, you need to delete this inline style. So every p tag, I have 1, 2, 3 p tags. I'll save, go back to my browser and do a refresh. You can see all the p tags change to the same style. One problem we have is that we don't really want the menu to change. We want the menu to stand out, use its own style, right? So what we could do is that to change the menu using a different tag. This time we introduce the division tag. So we change. Division is particular a container tag. It doesn't format or define anything. It provides a container so you can group the tags into different sections. So when I save this, go back to browser, do a refresh, so the menu stays the same. So only the p tags outside the division is changed. Now what if we want to apply some different styles for our menu? So for example, we want to make it really have a background. So for example, right, one way of doing this is using a selector, ID based selector. What we first want to do is then give it an ID attribute to the division. So we'll call this part the header. Then in the style block, we actually refer to the header, use the pound sign. So this is the second way we can refer, we can use the selector. See the difference here? The first one is the HTML tag based selector. Second one is the ID based selector with the pound sign. So I want to give it a background color to my menu. This time I'm going to use, let's say, pink. Save. Do a refresh. There is our pink menu. Next, I'm going to create some dynamic effect of our menu items. A lot of the places in menus, especially with the links, when the cursor is actually on top of the link, the style actually changes. So give a user a feedback that you are about to click the link. So how to achieve this effect? We actually use something called a pseudo-class. And this time I'm going to create some dynamic effect. We usually refer them as the rollover effect. Okay, so to the two link items in menu. So There is a sequence you have to define the pseudo class for the links. The first one you have to say it's a link. The second one is visited. The third one is hover. The fourth one is active. So you have to follow this sequence. So we're going to create some rollover effect or hover. That's we use the hover pseudo class. I'm going to change the, let's say maybe the background color. So we're going to use red. Save. And do a refresh. And you see there is the hovering effect, some dynamic animation there. Right? So, exactly, that's what we want. There is only one problem with this because we did not specify which link should have this hovering effect, and this actually applies to all the links on this page. Okay, so if I have another link inside my content here, so for example a link points to http spsu.edu. Save the file, go back to the browser. You see, we have the same effect, but somehow we want to actually distinguish these two effects, right? So each of the menu items should have hovering effect, but not the actual link inside the content. So we should distinguish these two link a little bit, and this is how we change our style sheet. We will specify all this link actually inside the header section have this effect, but not all the links inside this page. So a small change, and you can see that we still have this hovering effect in the header, but we don't have any hover effect on the normal links. Good. Another way we can achieve this effect is actually by using what we call a class selector. So an alternative way of doing this, not using the header and the ID selector, we actually create a class. We call it menu. We also copy the class attribute to the second link. So we can actually use the class name instead of the ID dot menu. So I will change each of this. See, the class selector is apply all the tags that have the same class name. Okay, it doesn't have to be the same tag. So even so, for example, for the welcome page here, H2, I can also apply this is the menu class. Just for example, although it is really not a menu class, just to demonstrate my point here. So let me save this file. Go back to the browser and do a refresh, and you see what happened. When I move over the welcome page, this block, H2 block, it actually has the same effect as this links, right? But not this link, because this one is not the menu class. So a class actually give you a grouping effect, doesn't matter what kind of tag. Okay. Now let's create some more effect. This time we're going to use a little bit about the layout. So use CSS for layout. Okay, this is what we're going to change. Remember, we can use the division tag very effectively. Okay, so which means this is the division. Think about organizing your page into different sections using these division tags. So this time I'm going to create an effect to really move the content to the center of the page. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a container tag. So id equals container. So this container wraps all the content in this file. So I'm going to create a little bit style for my container. So for example, I can give it a width, maybe 400 pixels. So by default it stretches to the whole screen though. And also I'm going to give it a background color so you can see the difference. And this time I'm going to use I can use the different way to refer to the color. So I'm going to use a hex value 6Es. Let me save this and you can see what's the change here. See, that's our block. So how do I center this block to the center of the page? I want to be here, right? So this time we can use the margin attribute effectively. Create 0, that's for the top. Alt, that's for right. 0, that's for bottom. And Alt, that's for left. The key is that to make right, this is right, and the left to be Alt. Save and do a refresh. Now it's centered to the page. So that's a little bit to get you started on using style sheets. We have talked about inline style and in-page style. Now the problem is that if I click on the second schedule page, you can see all the style is lost. Okay, because we define every style, we define the styles only in the first page. So what if we want to apply the same style to the second page so they can be consistent? Then either way, you can copy the complete style content, all of this, to the second page. Then we're creating redundancies. So then we introduce the third way to refer to the styles to avoid redundancies. This third way is called an external CSS file. So which means we need to create a separate file. So let me create a new file, and this time let me create it in CSS, in Notepad++. So I need to copy the complete style. I will just cut it and create a new file and paste it. Make sure you go into a language and change to CSS. Now you have color coding. So it's good. Everything stays the same. So let me save this. Choose the right type. I will call it my style. Save. So back to the first page. I no longer need all that kind of style block. What I really need is a link. Relevance is style sheet. Type is text CSS, and href, it's the source. So where is our CSS file? It's in the same directory, right? So I'm creating a link file. Notice that link file, link code is part of the head, in the head region. So let me save this. So go back to my folder. I have 2 pages plus the style sheet. So go back to the browser. Let me refresh this. We still have all the effects. So we just need to create that link in the second page and do some modifications to add the division tag to the second page. So let me go to the second page, edit the second page a little bit. So what we need is to copy the link and change the division a little bit. So we have a division. Let me just copy and paste. So we have a division container, right? We also have a division for the header. But we don't use class. So let me save this. And I will go back to my container, change all this menu class based over effects to header. Header 8. Okay, and save all pages. So you can see once I changed any of the style in the one file, it's going to apply the style to all the pages. You can see the second schedule page is actually have the same style as the first page. If I'm going to make a small change in the style file, so for example I want to somehow make my font size a lot bigger, just for example, save it, go back to browser, and do we have a p tag on the second page? Let me change to h tag, not the p tag, h2 tag. So that will change our page header, this part. Oh, that's changed. Oh, that's changed. Now you can see that we use CSS to apply styles to web pages, and actually we avoid a lot of redundancies. And the style information are centralized in one file, so you make a small change, it can actually apply it to all the pages that reference, that link to the single CSS file. That gives developers a very good flexibility. So it's become much easier to manage the style changes in the website. Okay, so that's the end of our second demo on CSS and enjoying programming.